Okay, so in this tutorial video, I wanted to go over with you kind of the interface of most code editors. Now, I'm going to use brackets.io or this brackets program from brackets.io. And yours code editor, whether you use Sublime Text or Dreamweaver, Notepad++, Text Wrangler, whatever the case may be, it's going to look a little bit different, but it should be fairly similar. So go with me on this. So I have downloaded and open brackets and I've saved it, to my dock so it's easy to get to. And most code editors, when you first open it up, will probably have like a sample page like this that has a bunch of code that'll freak you out. So don't worry about this. This is just the sample page. But the things I want you to show you is that they usually have some kind of a sidebar that helps you navigate what pages you're working on or what page you're coding at that time. It usually has these numbers to tell you what line of code. So if you might get an error back saying there's an error on line 24, and that helps you to see, okay, it must be something in here that the error is happening. This one particularly starts, this is where you can switch like different, it's just like different language things right here, but it's going to pick by default UTF-8, which is what we need, and it's going to create HTML by default. Now, like basic code editors like Notepad++ and Text Wrangler or Notepad and Text Edit, all of those programs, you're going to have to tell it it's HTML, and you might come up here and have to change those settings there. If you're in like Dreamweaver or Sublime, it assumes that you are just coding for the web, you're creating HTML or CSS files or whatever, but you still have to tell it what kind of file it is. So let me explain that part to you. So I have a bunch of crap on my desktop, which I shouldn't have, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these and show you what I mean. So right here, if I go up to File, New, it's going to create a brand new, fresh, blank page. These are the other pages that I can click on to see what's going on with these pages, but here's my untitled document. So I need to save this, and I have to save it to my desktop, and usually you don't want to save it just to the desktop. You want to save it to a folder because the internet is all just files and folders. And if you move something out of a folder or move something into a folder or change names on a file, it's going to freak your website out. So just be super organized from the beginning, and we'll talk about that in depth later on in the course. But for right now, I just need to save this file. So I'm going to go up to File and choose Save. And for most code editors, it doesn't know are you trying to create an HTML page, a CSS page, a JSON page, a JavaScript page, like what are you trying to create? So it's not going to assume it knows what you're trying to create. So if you were to just put test and like just click on desktop and put save, when it comes over here and I double click it, it's just like this weird window that has nothing in it. It's not an HTML file. And this is different than like a Word document, where a Word document actually puts the .docx at the end of your file to tell your computer it's a Word document. A code editor won't do that for you. So you need to do File, Save As, and you need to give it a name. Oops, I need to create a new one. File, New. Okay, so File, Save As, and you need to tell it what it's called. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Desktop, name it Test again, but this time I have to tell it it's a web page. It's an HTML file. So you have to put .html. When I'm creating CSS later, I'm going to put .css. If I was creating a .json, a JSON page, then I would do that. So make sure that you're creating the file name .html. Another thing to note, with HTML or any of these files, no capitals, no spaces. I use hyphens, not underscores, but you don't have to have spaces if you don't want to, but I always have spaces with hyphens, and no weird characters. So I'm going to go ahead and put this now and save it. And you'll see now on my desktop, there's this .html, and if I double click it, it's going to open up in the browser, which is exactly what we want it to do. Because then later on, if we were to type something like hello and do File, Save, there are two things we can do. We can either double click this HTML file again, and it's going to show hello. And so it is showing my first words on my first web page. Or if I do hello everyone and do file save, I can go back to my browser, and since I have that page already open, I can just hit refresh and it'll show that new version of that page. So every code editor you have, you're going to have to make sure that it's saving it as a .html file, if that's what you're creating, and then you need to make sure that you're opening it in a browser or opening it in some way so that you can see what it really looks like outside of that code environment.